So, Rachel, do you like games? You're a competitive person, right?
I am the least competitive person.
That's impossible because I am the least competitive person on earth.
No.
I've seen you play games. Sometimes you get oddly obsessed and cruel.
A little bit, yeah.
How do you become so uncompetitive with so many siblings?
That is the question. And the best part is I'm the middle sibling, so I had to kind of do that to survive.
I mean, that makes sense. So would you say it's survival that made you such a meanie bobini banana fana fofini?
Well, that and being so small, it's all the meanness is like concentrated.
Everything about you is concentrated into one.
Yeah, one tiny point.
Package. Well, good. If you're good with games, tonight's show is definitely going to suit you very well.
This podcast is about why horror scares us. What deep, dark, secret, scary cinema shines a light on. The discussions are frank and involve conversations about abuse, trauma, and mental health. There are also spoilers, so keep that in mind too. Now, sharpen your machetes and straight razors, because this is Cutting Deep into Horror.
Hello, my spookies, and welcome back to Cutting Deep into Horror. I am your host, Enrique Couto, here with our very special co-host,
Rachel Rodolphe.
Oh, usually I get to say it, but no.
I took the initiative.
That's fine. That's fine.
Once again, I'm the least competitive person.
And also so not stubborn too, right?
Oh, no, not at all.
Well, Rachel has been a collaborator of mine in many, many ways and many, many things in life. Movies, she's produced films and television series with me. She wrote an episode of Weekly Spooky. The first ever Thanksgiving episode of Weekly Spooky was written by Rachel.
Yep.
And you've just always kind of been in the background of whatever I've been up to for the last 5 years, roughly.
Yeah.
But somehow, for the most part, you've managed to stay clear of Weekly Spooky.
Yeah, I don't know how I've managed to stay clear this long.
Well, until you got put in as the third character on episode 200, Over the Scare.
Yes.
Which I think turned out great.
Phenomenal.
So, and that was when I had kind of a eureka moment of bringing you on to Cutting Deep and into Horror. Because my original co-host, Celise, her channel's awesome, by the way. Check it out on YouTube. Check her out at Sweet and Spooky. But she's just too friggin' busy. And there's too much going on to have her add a, monthly or bi-monthly, which doesn't mean anything.
We're not going to talk about it.
Oh, we're not?
We're both mad about that.
Okay, we're going to let that go. To some people, bi-monthly means twice a month, and to other people, it means every other month. And when you Google it, it means both. Which means it means nothing. But that being said, what brought me to the idea of bringing you on was I've kind of introduced you to horror in a lot of ways. I mean, you saw some stuff before I was in your life, I think.
Not much, though.
Really?
I'm trying to think what would constitute a horror movie.
Had you seen The Exorcist?
I had not seen The Exorcist.
Jaws?
I had not seen Jaws.
You hadn't seen Jaws? Wow.
No.
Had you seen Poltergeist?
No.
Any Freddy Krueger movies?
Absolutely not.
Jason Voorhees?
Nope.
Michael Myers?
Nope.
Not even Austin Powers?
That's my favorite one.
That's the best one. Ha ha. No, so okay, wow. So you had really seen almost nothing.
I saw Blood and Chocolate.
I know that movie. I don't know that movie that well, though.
It's Twilight, but werewolves.
I was literally about to go, is that a girl movie?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's fair. So I've gotten to introduce you to lots of cool horror movies. And one thing I've noticed that you took to them very well. But not only that, when I would show you something challenging, you really take to it.
Yeah.
Although the film we're talking about tonight, Funny Games from 2007, we're talking about the American remake. And before you get out your pitchforks and skewer us alive, it's directed by the same person who directed Funny Games in Germany. It's just remade almost identically with an American cast. And I'll get into more of why I chose that version rather than the original in a second. But I want to give people a kind of concept of who you are and why they should also not like you.
So many reasons.
I know, right? But no, so we watched tons of movies together. But I remember once you had a horrible day. Or maybe it was a horrible week. And I was like, let's take your mind off it by going all the way. I am a big believer of like, if you feel like crap, watch something that also makes you feel like crap, and it kind of like takes you out of it.
Yeah.
You, after about 40 minutes, you were like, can we shut this off?
Yeah, I think that was the only time with you where I specifically made and I had to think about it too. I wanted to be sure I'm being honest, but that was the only time watching a movie with you where I had to admit, like, I psychologically and physically can't do this right now.
Yeah.
Which says a lot because thanks to you, I'm pretty willing to like dive into the depths of whatever, and I come out relatively unscathed. And I'm like, wow, this was that was a fun ride, or like here's the good and the bad and the ugly with it. But no, that one on the first viewing, it was. I believe it was the scene when they're. And not to get into too much ahead of hand,
into it in no time,
but the scene where the family is all in the living room, and they had the kid apprehended, and I was like, oh, I know where this is going, and I don't want to go there.
Really know?
No, because I kept hoping like maybe they won't do that. Yeah. Maybe that
and
won't.
We'll get there. But so
that's beside the point.
But so after I showed you Funny Games, I think that was one of the first times you shot off at your mouth on Facebook about a horror film. And since then, you've done that about most movies if they really connect with you.
Yeah.
Like if they really make you think. And that's what put onto my radar that you were like really into being thoughtful about movies. I mean, we'd talk about movies for hours sometimes, but that was the kind of the moment I was like, whoa, like you really want to like sit down and appreciate when this stuff messes you up.
Yes.
And I dig that, obviously, and that's kind of what Cutting Deep in Horror is. So I figured, let's do it. And of course, what would be the first episode but Funny Games?
Yes.
So, and we just rewatched it together, although you had rewatched it once before that.
Yeah, about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Because we tried watching it the first time, and I requested that we shut it off. And I believe that we only had to wait about a week. And you brought it back up, like, would you like to finish it? And I was like, yeah, but let's start it from the beginning. Like, I do want the full experience. And then a couple weeks ago, when you approached me with the idea, like, would you like to do this? I was like, I'm going to sit down by myself in a house in the woods in the middle of nowhere with literally no one around me.
For the record, that's just your house.
Yeah. But that doesn't make it any better.
No, it does. It really does not. No, it does not.
So I managed to get through it all by myself, and then we watched it again today. So I'd like to say it's officially the only movie I've seen 3.5 times.
Only? Oh, because the half.
Because the half.
Yeah, you clever little butt. No, that's a fair point. And so the first time I watched the movie, it disturbed me greatly. And a lot of people are shocked that this is one of the films that disturbs me greatly. They're expecting some kind of like splattery, gory, a Serbian film kind of thing. And I'm like, no, Funny Games like really bothers me.
Yeah.
Like deeply bothers me. And yeah, so I watched it once by myself, and then I've watched it, I want to say 4 times with 4 different people.
Okay.
I don't watch it by myself.
Not anymore.
It's not fun unless I have somebody to talk about it with after.
Yeah, because you almost need like that decompression afterward.
That
like
trauma bonding.
Yeah. Well, when I got done watching it myself, I was like, I'm gonna go hug my cat for an hour.
Oh,
like,
poor cat.
Oh, she hated it, but I was like, I just need to connect with something.
Tough crap, cat. This is what you're here for. So, Funny Games, also known as Funny Games US in some parts of the world, because the original Funny Games was 10 years earlier in 1997. It's a 2007 psychological horror film, I guess you could call it that, written and directed by Michael Haneke. I believe that's how you say it. He's a German filmmaker. And it's a remake of the 1997 film of the same title that he also wrote and directed. I don't think you've seen it.
I have not.
It's good, but it's almost exactly the same.
Yeah.
With a few updates, like the cell phones are different and you know, the phone stuff is different. But the reason I like the US version more is two simple reasons. Number one, it doesn't get to have the benefit of me thinking it's just simply scarier because German people are creepy. And I don't mean that as an insult to German people, but I mean, like, as an American, you sit and watch a German movie, and if somebody is evil and they're speaking German, they're just automatically scarier.
Yeah.
Russian too. You know, like, they're
Yeah.
scary languages. They're scary languages for the untrained ear. So what happens is, I think that gives it an unfair advantage anyway. So I don't think that's scarier. But on top of that, the reason I find this movie so scary is because I find it so realistic.
Yes.
So setting it in a town similar to a town that I've ever been in
Yes.
in my life just simply makes it scarier. And they're really not that different beyond that. It's basically one's in English and set in America, and the other one is in German and set in Germany.
Yeah.
So that's why I prefer the US, is simply because I like it for the reasons they remade it at all, which was to draw in the US audience.
Right.
So, but that's nothing against the original. If you dig on the original, dig on it. It is scary and creepy and unpleasant.
I would have to imagine so, being that it's the source material for all this.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, and the American version was an international co-production between the United States, United Kingdom, France, Germany, and Italy. That was where all the money came from. It stars Naomi Watts and, what is his name? I can't believe he's like my favorite person in the movie. And I'm like, what's his name? Tim Roth. Naomi Watts and Tim Roth, two of the most talented actors there have ever been. And Tim Roth doing an American accent, which I forgot how good he is at doing an American accent. You know, he's a Brit.
I thought so, yeah.
So, and then, of course, also stars Michael Pitt, Brady Corbett, and Devin Gerhardt. And they're all really great. I mean, the young kids. So I want you to give a very quick rundown of what the movie's about, just like your own synopsis, and I'll help if you need me.
Okay. So a well-to-do family. I wouldn't call them necessarily filthy, stinking rich, but they're well-to-do.
So, writer-director Michael Haneke, he called them middle class.
I would, for that time period, I would say slightly better than middle class.
Middle
yeah,
class.
they're upper middle
they
class.
They own a vacation home
on a lake.
But it's, an hour from where they live. It's not like they're in Bermuda or something.
Right.
So I guess upper middle class, maybe.
Yeah, upper middle class. So an upper middle class family is going to their lake home for a vacation for either a week or two. We kind of get the vibe that it's summer break because they've got their kid with them. They've got their dog with them.
But I don't think it is summer break. It seemed like it was a last minute decision.
Oh, you know what? You're right.
Because they kind of referenced that things were, yeah. So maybe it was a last minute decision to go out there.
So we, as soon as we get to the lake, and I won't talk about the entrance because I think the music itself needs mentioning.
Okay.
But once we get to the lake, we kind of understand that they're very friendly with all of their neighbors who are also upper middle class living along the lake. And they pass one of their neighbors' houses, and they notice that their neighbor and his wife are out on the lawn, apparently practicing golfing with two strangers they've never met before. Very unassuming young gentlemen. And as things progress, they get to the house, they unpack, they're starting to get the boat ready because they want to go out on the boat in the morning. And one of the young men comes and introduces himself and says that he's been sent by the neighbors specifically to get some eggs. But
4 eggs. Yep.
4 eggs. And what is supposed to be an incredibly benign and unremarkable act of just neighborly values very quickly escalates and then totally disintegrates into these two strangers torturing and hunting down this family.
Yes, it's in many ways it's a home invasion story.
It is.
Yeah, which are a type of film that has always made me very uncomfortable because I live in a home.
Right.
It's almost the perfect way to freak people out.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the synopsis, because I think that's one of the reasons that it's so scary is because it is so realistic.
Yeah.
But the reason that it gets in your brain is because the synopsis does not do the movie justice. And that's one of the notes that I wrote down is the movie lives in the moments between action. And there's a lot of action. There's a lot that goes on. There's a lot of violence. But something that's really interesting is most of the violence is off screen.
Yeah, no, that's true. Almost, I actually, like pretty much all of it is.
All of it.
Because even when he gets his kneecapped.
Yeah, you don't actually see it.
Yeah.
The camera is focused solely on his face. So the movie lives in the spaces between actions. And Naomi Watts and Tim Roth are so mind-blowing good at just making you not only believe that this is what is happening at this present moment, like you're looking at something that's happening and unfolding in front of you. They also emote so well that you start thinking like, oh shit, I would be doing the same exact thing. Like I would feel this way if this was happening. Like they're almost telling you how you would act and react in a similar situation.
It's kind of like Red Eye.
Yeah.
Red Eye is if you've never seen Red Eye, you should. It's a thriller set on an airplane with Cillian Murphy, and he's just a psychopath who don't know why he's terrorizing this woman on an airplane. But it's one of the only movies I've ever watched where every time I went, oh, she should just stab him with a pen. Oh my God, she just stabbed him with a pen. Like where you're
she
yelling
does
at the
everything
screen.
Right.
Yeah, everything that you would yell at the screen for her to do, she totally does. She is not a stand by and see what happens type of person.
No, she very much takes action.
And Funny Games is somewhat like that, although it's a bit of a heavier space.
Yes.
So let's get into the movie. So as we established, it's a husband and wife with their. How old do you think that little boy was? Like 10?
9, 10.
10, okay.
Because he mentioned that his friend Johnny is coming. He's one of the kids that lives, across the lake. And Johnny has a girlfriend that he brought with him.
Oh, okay.
So
He's
I'm assuming
12 or 11, 10.
Yeah, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
But definitely prepubescent. Like this kid hasn't hit puberty yet. I could beat him up in a fight, and that's saying something.
For people who don't know, Rachel is 5 foot nothing, and weighs like 120, soaking wet.
Yeah.
So they're in the house doing things, trying to get their boat out and everything like this, and this young man shows up, and he's wearing white gloves, a white T-shirt, and black shorts. Mm-hmm. And he is the friends of the neighbors you were mentioning, that they've not known, and he says, "Hey, could I borrow 4 eggs?" And Naomi Watts' character is like, oh, sure, of course you can. No problem. And she goes to get the eggs, and she has a dozen eggs.
Mm-hmm. That they just bought.
And she said she's going to the grocery store.
On Monday. They're going to the grocery store on Monday.
Yeah. So she does the neighborly thing and gives him 4 eggs, and they're making conversation, and she is just they're both being unbelievably polite.
Yes.
Like just nonstop politeness. There's this awkwardness to it, which is legitimate. It would be awkward if, obviously he's not really there for the reasons they say, but if he had actually been asked by that family, like, hey, go ask them for some eggs to strangers, that is awkward.
Yeah, it is.
And maybe vaguely humiliating. I don't think it's really humiliating, but they reference later that he felt humiliated.
Yeah, he felt humiliated by it.
But it's definitely awkward to be like, hey, I know you don't know me, but like she needed eggs, I mean, maybe if they had just moved to the area, then it would make sense, to try and like be like, no, introduce yourself to people or whatever.
Yeah.
But so he gets the 4 eggs, and before he walks out of the front door, he breaks them.
Yeah, drops them.
Yep. And he says like, oh, I'm so sorry. And she's cleaning it up, and he's just, I'm sorry. She's like, no, that's no reason to complain. And then she says, so what are we going to do? And he's like, well, you have 8 more eggs, so just give me 4 more eggs, and then you're going to the store on Monday. And she says, well, the issue there is my family and I don't eat eggs. She mentioned that, like, we don't eat eggs for breakfast. So I'm assuming she keeps eggs around for baking.
Yeah.
So she's like, we don't eat eggs for breakfast, but tomorrow we have guests coming over and they will want eggs in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's like, well, I mean, 4 should be enough. And she's like, no, you're right. 4 should be enough.
Mm-hmm.
But she's clearly frustrated with him now.
Oh, absolutely.
And she's trying so hard. There's this great moment. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, they're talking about like one of the scariest horror movies to them ever. And we're talking about just base human interaction. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So she actually kind of gets short with him. And at one point he says, like, I'm really sorry. And she says, yeah, me too. Like, because she feels bad that she's
getting mean.
She's getting mean, but it's like they just drove all the way up there. They have a small child to deal with and a dog to deal with. And her husband is out having fun with the kid. She's got to figure out all the food. She's frustrated. I love this because the movie's so slice of life. She's frustrated because I guess it seemed to me like maybe the power had went out or something, because she mentioned that there was
the clock's not working.
And the clock's not working, and that there was a big steak they had in the freezer that had thawed out. So they have to eat it every day until it's gone.
Yeah.
Because they can't let it go to waste, and it's a huge steak.
Yeah.
So, so she's obviously frustrated.
Mm-hmm. And to kind of build on that, the reason that she started being short is not only did this guy break the eggs, and then he's sitting around trying to make small talk as she's talking about it. Oh no, it's fine. I cleaned it up. It's no big deal. He starts demanding more eggs, which pushing the boundaries of what hospitality is.
Yes.
And then as he's looming over her, as she's getting, she finally concedes, oh yeah, you're right. Like 4 eggs would be enough for the morning.
It's not a big deal.
He jokingly says, oh yeah, you could say that I have 2 left hands, and then he turns and knocks the phone into the sink, which is full of water.
Because she was washing lettuce.
Because she was
greens of some
sort for their dinner. And so her frustration stems from, this is their only source of communication because they don't have a landline.
Yeah.
And so she's all frustrated. You can see on her face because, okay, well, now I can't get in touch with my friends who are coming in the morning.
Well, and that's not even that big a deal because they could just go to their neighbor's house. But it's more like, how happy would you be if your cell phone fell into a sink full of water? You'd be pretty stressed out. And remember, this is 2007, so it's her Nokia falling into the water. It's not like it's, the iPhone 11 or whatever, where it's like it can be submerged up to 4 meters for 5 hours.
Exactly.
No, it's not
Nokia,
like that.
You breathe on it wrong and it shorts.
Oh yeah, you think the wrong thoughts and it's going to bust.
Yeah.
So, but actually, we're going to take a quick break and then we're going to dive into how things are getting a little bit heavier right after these quick messages from our sponsors. We are back here on Cutting Deep into Horror, and we're talking all about funny games. And Rachel, you had a point you wanted to make before we jump into more of the excellent terror that's coming up.
Well, I kind of wanted to point out, because I know I had mentioned at the beginning that this movie lives in the spaces between the action. And what's really interesting is how they pace the introductions. And so when the family is driving up and they see their neighbors, one of the neighbors' name is Fred, when they see him out, quote unquote, practicing golf with these 2 strangers. As viewers, even the first time I watched it, we get a little mixed signals from body language, but that's easy to write off because, everybody's getting there from vacation.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is this interplay of Anne, Mrs. Farber, unpacking and getting the food ready and
talking to her friend on the phone and the dog outside barking and being a dog and doing what dogs are supposed to do, and Georgie and his dad George, Mr. Farber, out on the dock, and Fred the neighbor comes with one of the strangers and introduces him as Paul. Right.
And we notice even more that Fred's actions just are not the actions of someone who is comfortable.
Right, yeah.
And even little Georgie, who again is 9, 10, 11 years old, he's just a kid. he even says to his dad, like, why is Fred acting weird?
Yeah, why is Uncle Fred acting like that? I remember that line, yeah.
And that's when we get to Anne in the kitchen, and this other stranger, who eventually is introduced as Peter, comes and starts asking for the eggs. And you had mentioned before we went on break that, we're sitting around talking about, like, slice of life, like general hospitality stuff, like that's supposed to be horror. But that, for the lead up to what happens, that is the horror, because hospitality, either receiving it or giving it, is kind of terrifying because there's a lot of unspoken rules. And these two individuals prey on that.
Okay, so you're talking about being afraid of faux pas.
Of faux
the
pas.
fear of faux pas.
Yes.
Sure. Well, that's a real thing, especially, I mean, we're both from the Midwest.
Whoa, yeah.
I am so afraid that I'm not polite enough all the time, and it's so silly sounding, but true. It's completely
is.
True, yeah.
I will hold the door open for people that are like 12 feet away because I don't want to seem like a jerk.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I will accidentally brush someone on the elbow when I'm getting something off the shelf in the grocery store and I feel like I'm going to die.
When I first moved to New Jersey, I finally realized that the rest of the world is not the Midwest. When I was walking through the grocery store and somebody hit me with their shopping cart, not super hard or anything, just bumped me with their shopping cart. I didn't have a cart. I mean, they just hit my body. And I turned and went, "Oh, excuse me." And they looked at me like, "What's your problem?" And they hit me.
And you were the one apologizing.
Yeah. And they were just like, ugh. And they like went away. I'm like, the hell is this place?
So that's kind of like the setup, and that's why Peter demanding more and more eggs as he breaks the eggs starts to build the tension in your gut, because you're like, well, as the host, I can't necessarily say no because he's not making unreasonable demands. But at the same time, I want to say no because I already gave him 4 eggs.
Yeah, and because they are your eggs.
Yeah,
like you're allowed to not be any more helpful than you've already been.
Exactly.
And for him, I think that the joy is in testing your kindness, your generosity.
Yes.
That's the cruelty.
He wants to see how far he can take it.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly.
And he's got very much the abusive, because there's even a line later on in the movie where he says, "You practically forced me to treat you badly," and it's because she wouldn't give him all 12 eggs, and then started to get upset when he wouldn't leave their home when she asked.
Yeah, so let's go into that a little bit. So first of all, I want to describe the gentleman.
Yes, because
so they're both wearing white gloves, and not surgical gloves, but
golf
fabric
gloves.
They weren't golf gloves.
They weren't?
Not as far as I could tell. They were just fabric gloves, like the kind you'd wear for theater.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they're as far as I could tell. Because golf gloves tend to have like grippies and stuff.
Oh, they do. Yeah. And they don't have anything on the palms. It is just nondescript just like white gloves.
Theater gloves, yeah. Which I assume is because they're, committing crimes. But at the same time, I don't know. These guys are impossible to read what their deal actually is. And so now we have the egg issue and all this stuff, and they start asking for more and more things. The other guy shows up, and now he wants to try hitting a golf ball with a really expensive golf club he saw inside the house. So they're demanding more and more and more. And one of my favorite things about this movie is when the guy first shows up at the door and he says, "Hello. Oh, you saw me earlier. I was at whatever." And she goes, "Oh my gosh. Yeah. Come in. To a guy that she doesn't know at all.
Yeah.
Because at first she was creeped out because she's like, "How'd you get through the gate?" Because they have a gate.
It is a gated home.
Yeah.
And that is very interesting though, because he mentions, "Oh, well, there's a hole in the fence near the water," and she says, "Oh, well, why aren't you wet?" And he's like, "No, it's not on the water; it's near the water." And that actually pays off toward the end because she finds a small hole and then makes it bigger to try to get to the neighbor's house.
No, totally.
So that there's a lot of give and take and payoff in this movie. Not always good payoff, but it does pay off.
Well, and so one thing that people have pointed out about this film a lot is that it is deeply nihilistic.
Oh my, yes.
So the husband comes back in because she's like, "I want you to make these guys leave." And he's like, "All right, let me see what's going on." And he's not, I would say he's like medium dismissive. He's kind of
Yes.
like, my wife's been in a bad mood today. But then sorry, please.
Oh, well, and he's partially dismissive because the dog isn't barking anymore. So they're trying to find the dog.
But the dog, sorry, folks, it reached its fate, unfortunately.
Yes.
And Chicano's laying on my feet right now. He's like, I'm not listening.
Yeah, he's
But-
got his ears covered.
But so now Tim Roth's character is telling him, like, you should leave. And the guy's like, I forget what he said. What did he say that got him slapped? I forget what he said.
Well, at first they refused to leave because they're like, we're sorry we offended you.
But we still need eggs.
Yeah, we still need eggs. If you could just explain to us what we did wrong, then we won't do that again. And but we still need those eggs. And that's when Anne hands the eggs to George, her husband, and says, just give him the eggs and get him out of here. And George says, like, well, what? They're making a good point. What did they do wrong? Like, why are you so upset?
You're right.
And she kind of hisses between her teeth. She's like, I'm not explaining myself in front of them.
Yeah.
And just walks off. And that's when George finally stands up and says, like, look, my wife's real upset. She's not feeling great. You know, we had to drive for an hour to get here. Here's the eggs. Could you just get out of here? And they continue to refuse to leave.
Right. But by just saying, like, but what did we do?
But what did we do wrong?
It's like, oh my God, we gave you what you wanted.
Yeah,
Leave.
like, get out. And so what George says is, if you don't leave, there's going to be problems for you, young man.
Oh, yeah.
And that's when Paul says something to the effect of, well, you can't make us leave, old man.
Or there'll be problems for you, old man.
Yeah.
And he just slaps him across the face. And not like a hard one. Just
No.
like he slaps him in the face and then goes, get out of my house.
Yeah, it was just to make a point.
Yeah.
So then the very expensive 9-iron returns.
You sure it was a 9-iron?
I'm pretty certain he said 9-iron.
Okay, because the only golf club I know of is a 9-iron or a putter. So I just assume that you're just like me in that.
Maybe, but I feel like I remember the words 9-iron.
9-iron. But yeah, he basically shatters his knee with the 9-iron. But we don't see it. We just hear the aftermath of it.
Exactly. Because the camera stays focused on the face of George and his son, Georgie.
Yes.
Because again, it's not necessarily about the violence. It's about the psychological impact of the violence.
And if you've never seen this movie, first of all, I mean, you know, I can't tell, you're an adult. We're spoiling a bunch of the movie, and that's all there is to it. But I know that if you want to watch it, you can rent it on any of the streaming services where you can rent. It's not available to grab right away. It's on DVD, not on Blu-ray in America yet, hopefully soon. But this movie is not played the way it sounds like. It is slow, almost creepingly slow on purpose to make you have to stare dead-eyed right into what is happening.
Yes.
And that is something that really bothers me about this film in a good way, because the reason I love this movie is it bothers me a lot.
Yes.
It really gets under my skin super fast because now that they have basically taken the family hostage, they've begun to take the family hostage, they're just being polite.
Yes.
It's just, I really didn't want to have to do that to you. Let me help you up. Like, would you like me to help you? If you take your pants off, I can take a look at it and maybe I can help you. And, you know, like,
you should really get it elevated. Would you like a pillow for that? I can go get you a pillow.
But it's like, and that's what they do. So they'll like say that stuff and then they'll like hit you in the jaw, you know, and they'll just be like, I'm sorry that had to happen, but you gave me no choice. Now please sit down. You know, like they're constantly like that. And it's so infuriating.
Yes.
It's so infuriating. It's just,
it
gets to me, man.
It's the kind of infuriating because, like, I think what happens a lot in horror movies is the bad guy stops being human in our eyes.
Yeah.
The bad guy becomes dehumanized. So then it becomes really easy to hate them in a playful manner where it's like, I just really hate, I really hate Leatherface. It's really easy because
go easy on Bubba.
But it's really easy. But with this, because they will oscillate so quickly between being totally unreasonable and moving the goalposts to being totally sweet and saccharine and I'm sorry that had to happen, and I'm sorry, just you upset Peter.
They go into like a customer service voice.
Yeah. You're like, I, as a primate, want to rip their faces off.
Yes. Yes. And they are just trying to make sure that any reasonable reaction you have is completely unreasonable. They're gaslighting to the 10th degree.
Right.
And that is it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
So now they have these guys in the house. It's clear that they ain't right. And it's been revealed to the husband, whose leg is all messed up, that they have no phone.
Yes. The wife finally admits it.
Well, she realizes it because she gets distracted by everything that's happening. And she realizes he destroyed my phone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Rough stuff. So now we're basically playing games.
Yeah.
But the games change. The rules change. How you win changes. What you get if you win changes.
Mm-hmm.
And they're basically grooming them early on. Like the first thing they do to the husband is they say, "What is this?" And it's a golf ball. And he says, "Golf ball." And they say, "Very good."
Yes.
And it's basically just them leading into basically saying, telling them without telling them they killed their dog.
Yes.
And then they play hot and cold to find the corpse of their dog.
Yes.
Which is just, it's all about about the pain.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a moment where they say, "Why are you doing this?" Or like, well, later on they say, like, "Just kill us." And it's like, what about entertainment?
Yeah.
And that's something I want to bring up that is really important to mention, is I am not a fan of why Michael Haneke made this movie. He claims he made this movie to make a point that that violent entertainment is bad. He said in his own words, I just found the quote. He said in his own words, where was it? That he stated he wanted the film as a reflection and criticism of violence used in media, and he wanted to make a pointless movie about with violence in it. So in his own words, he referred to the film as pointless. That's
interesting because I feel like it did have a point.
But I do, and I agree, but I feel like it had a point that was the opposite in many ways of what his point was. Because he said that he never set out to make a horror movie. And I believe him. I mean, but we talk about this all the time. What's the difference between a horror movie and a thriller? An Oscar nomination. Like that really is it. And that's kind of the point on this. He's trying to make a movie about these things, and he's like, "Oh, it's not a horror movie." Well, it sure is terrifying.
Yeah.
It
like
really
primally.
Is. Yeah, no, deeply and primally terrifying. And the idea that it's pointless, I understand why he might say that. Because if you think about it, it's like, I'm trying to think how to put it. It's because of the slice of life element. It's kind of like Seinfeld. It's a show about nothing. It's a movie about nothing. They're just going on a little vacation.
Yeah.
We don't know like what they do for a living. We don't know how their relationship is. We don't know anything about them, and we get almost nothing before the horror starts. Mm-hmm. I mean, we get that they're having friends over. We get that they don't like to eat eggs for breakfast. That's like it.
That's about it.
Yeah. We get that they make enough money to have a house like this.
Yeah.
That's it. I don't even think they say where they are.
No.
Like, we get so little.
But what's so interesting about that is, despite the fact that we get so little information on them, because it is just slice of life, I find them so tremendously relatable as characters.
Agreed. Well, it's like R.L. Stine said that he writes his characters with so little descriptions because he wants the reader to imagine themselves.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So they almost become a stand-in for, like I said, for yourself. And that's why when the scenes focus on 90 seconds of Naomi Watts just breathing heavily, trying to get her arms loose from ties, while her husband is on the other side of the room coming to consciousness and her child is dead next to her, and it's 90 seconds of that, you get into her headspace because she's just a blank canvas for you to paint yourself into.
And it might even be longer than 90 seconds. And we're not using colloquial terms. We mean literally like the clock has ticked 90 times or more. And 90 seconds in a feature film is a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
For them to leave the camera almost totally stationary.
Yeah.
And show you her in the space. Because, you know, we're not breaking down the entire friggin' movie, but they kill their son first.
Yes.
Through eeny, meeny, miny, mo, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And they do other things too, because their game is to cause the family to be uncomfortable and to make the family compliant. Because compliance seems to be the thing that they enjoy the most.
Mm-hmm.
That seems to be what entertains them the most, is the idea that they could get Naomi Watts to take her clothes off, not so they can see her naked,
but just to prove that she's compliant.
And according to them, to prove that she is fit. Because one of them is like, oh, I think she's in really good shape. And the other's like, I think she's hiding jelly rolls. That's literally what they say.
Yeah.
So it's this game that is so,
Yeah. Well, and I had taken a note about that because leading up to that, when Peter and Paul, which I don't know if you like,
the names are Peter and Paul.
Yeah, Peter and Paul, but they'll also call each other Tom and Jerry. They'll call each other Beavis and Butthead. They give us bogus backstories that we know are false and they admit are false, but we can't get a beat on these guys.
Yeah. They at one point he confesses that like they're both drug addicts, and then the next step he's like, oh, he's he has no father because his father left, and it's like, oh, actually his mother kicked his father out. Oh, actually his father's an alcoholic and he's having sex with his mother. It's like that's in one breath. One scene, he'll say all those things. Like, actually, he's just rich and he needs to take the SATs again or something. You know,
exactly.
They just keep throwing these things at you.
So you don't know what's going on, but as they're doing all this and they start poking and prodding each other and talking about, maybe Mrs. Farber has jelly rolls, and that's when Paul says they're going to play a game, and it's a family game.
Yes,
and they're going to play cat. What was it? Cat in the bag. He claims that covering little Georgie's head was to protect his innocence.
Right.
But we know as the audience and the captives know that's not what it is. It's about asserting their power. And what gets even creepier about that is after they've got little Georgie's head in a pillowcase, they're telling Anne that she needs to take her clothes off and she's not being compliant. So then Paul tells George Sr., you're the captain of this ship. They have to listen to you. Tell your wife, take your clothes off, honey.
Yeah. And one of the cruelest things you can do to somebody is make them hurt somebody else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And especially someone that they love.
Yeah.
And then it becomes even worse because eventually, after moments and moments of building up the psychological strength to do this, George Sr. says, take your clothes off. And Paul stops him and says, no, take your clothes off, honey.
Exact same words I'm using.
And so eventually Anne has to follow those directions. And so she takes her clothes off, and Peter and Paul sit there, and they're not ogling.
No.
They're just matter-of-factly saying, oh, yeah, I told you she doesn't have jelly rolls.
And they just have a general joy at everything they're doing. They have no excitement, no thrill for the most part.
Yeah.
It's just kind of, and now this.
Yeah.
Good job, everybody.
And to close off that scene, they don't even allow George Sr. to tell her, like, okay, we're okay now.
Yeah, they tell her.
They tell her, okay, now put your clothes back on.
So he's the only one hurting her.
Yes.
Yeah. We're going to take a real quick break, and then we'll be back to talk even more about funny games right after this. All right, we're back with Cutting Deep into Horror, and we were just talking about one of the most difficult to watch scenes in funny games, and that is saying something, as they're wrapping up the torment of the family in the living room, and the mother has been stripped naked so that they could not even ogle her body, not even sexualize her, but simply judge.
Yeah. I think that's the thing that makes that so much more uncomfortable is at least with ogling, there's an amount of appreciation.
Yeah.
They're strictly judging, and they're judging on a negative score. There is no, because again, in funny games, there is no winning. There's only delaying losing for a while.
Yeah, and they make that very clear.
Because they even tell them, like, well, we're going to bet for your lives.
Yeah, and it should be mentioned at the beginning, they say that at the end of this whole thing, they'll all be dead.
Yeah.
He says that very early on, and he doesn't just say it to the characters, he says it to the audience.
Yeah.
And and that's something else worth mentioning real quick. The main bad guy breaks the fourth wall about 4 times in the film, and every time it chills me to the bone.
Oh, I get goosebumps just thinking about it.
That moment that he stops what he's doing and he's so evil, and then he looks at you like he knows you're a voyeur.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm supposed to feel safe in the fact that you don't know that I'm here.
Yeah, like, I'm behind the screen. You shouldn't see me.
Yeah, and so he says, without a shadow of a doubt, that this family is going to die. He says it.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I'm sorry, but I just wanted to point that out because we there's so much to talk about.
No,
in this movie,
there's a lot to unpack. So let me double check my notes to make sure I'm not going to go on. No.
See, when I have notes, I pretend I don't. That's my secret weapon.
Oh, so after they've judged her,
right?
And that's that being the thing. She's judged on a negative scale, and she technically doesn't lose because she doesn't have jelly rolls.
We're making air quotes.
Because these guys, that's another thing that's so scary, is they're cruel and they're calculating and they're manipulative and they're abusive and they have the emotional intelligence of 12-year-olds.
But worse yet, they're creative. They're very creative when it comes to this task. They're always coming up with a new game, a new ploy, a new whatever, but they're always honest about one thing, which is you can't win and you're going to die.
Yeah.
And that's something that's harrowing.
Yeah. So after that, there's a bit of a tussle.
Yeah.
And that's when Georgie manages to make an escape, and he hoofs it to the neighbor's house. And that's, as the audience, and because of all the horror movies I've watched with you, it starts to feel like it's verging onto your more stereotypical, like, slasher horror movie.
Yeah, stalk and slash.
Because Paul comes after him, and very much like Michael Myers, he's not running, he's not sprinting.
He was jogging, like literally jogging. I
mean,
like
it was
old
person jogging.
Like it was for fitness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the whole
He's
time,
pacing himself.
The whole time, Georgie does everything right. Like, he has to run through the water to get to the house, and then as soon as he starts walking around, he realizes he's leaving watery footprints everywhere.
So he takes his pants and his shoes off.
And his shoes and socks off. He doesn't go downstairs. He immediately goes upstairs. He moves from room to room quietly, and he makes sure that he's keeping track of the outside lights and the inside lights, so he knows exactly where his hunter is.
Yeah.
The moment he finds a weapon, he takes it, and as best as a little 11-year-old can, he tries to defend himself. He does literally everything right.
Yeah, he finds a double-barreled shotgun. He points it at the sumbitch. And then the sumbitch says, cock it and fire it. And the kid does.
He does.
And there's no bullets in it.
Yep.
It's also like an ancient double-barrel shotgun.
Yeah.
But yeah, he does everything right. You're totally right. I hadn't thought about that.
And so that's, as the viewer, once that scene happens and they capture little Georgie again, it starts becoming a question of, like, okay, they gave us just a taste of your classical stalk and slash horror movie. How are they going to, like, I want to go back to the safety of that. That feels like that's the safe zone, because then you've got hope. There's at least hope that the final girl will get out, or someone will be the hero, or they'll get a hold of the police. And every single time they give us a little tiny morsel of, like, oh, maybe you'll get it. Yeah. And then they take it away again.
Absolutely. Well, and speaking of taking it away, one of the controversial moments of the film is we're just about to get to it. Speaking of the shotgun and the child.
Yes.
Because next up, they're getting ready to do something very bad. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. After the child has been killed, we've already spoiled that, but after the child's been killed with the shotgun, at one point, they're trying to get Naomi Watts to do something. I forget exactly what. They're trying to get her to do... they're trying to get her to do... to tell a prayer backwards.
Yes.
And if she can tell a prayer backwards, she won't get to live. She'll get to choose...
How she gets to choose who dies and how. But that's the other thing is these bad guys are constantly moving the goalposts.
Yes.
Because at first was, well, you have to say a prayer.
Right.
And then what you win, your prize, is you get to choose who dies and how. She doesn't know any prayers, so they give her one that's really short, and she manages to say it after they torture her into kneeling and crying.
And her husband is begging her, like, don't do anything they ask you because it'll just make us suffer longer.
Exactly.
At that point, they're basically like, we would rather die than feed these guys sick game.
Exactly.
Which I get.
So she does that.
Yeah.
And that's when they move the goalpost and they say, okay, well, you did that. So now, in order to choose who dies and how, you have to say the prayer backwards.
And it was a simple prayer. It was like, I love you, God, with all my might. Keep me safe throughout the night, or something like that. Yeah. And then you get to choose. But then he says, the fast death of the big gun or the slow death of the little knife. And as he says that, she grabs the shotgun, which has one shell left in it. They made a point to point out that they only had two, and they used one on their son. And she shoots the other guy right in the chest. He flies into the wall, definitely dead.
Yeah, instantly.
But then, and this is why this is the most controversial scene of the film, the main bad guy character goes, no, like what? No. And he starts saying, where's the remote? Where's the remote? And he digs through the couch cushions, finds a DVD player remote, hits the rewind button, and the film rewinds like it's a DVD. Mm-hmm. And then the scene happens again, but this time he stops her from doing it.
Yeah.
So they don't just give you nothing. They give you what you've been hoping for the entire film.
And then they take it away
from you. They just take it away from you. The only thing you're hoping this entire movie is for some comeuppance. And they are like, nah. And that's a very important point that I'm good, because eventually I'm going to get to why I disagree with the filmmaker entirely, and I think he made a totally different film. Mm-hmm. I'll get to that soon, and this is one of those reasons. But now he's taken away from the audience. So now he's not just hurting the characters, he's hurting the audience.
Yeah.
He's intentionally harming the audience. And I believe at one point he says, like, did you really think that was going to happen? Like, to the audience. Like, he looks at the camera,
one of the times when he breaks the fourth wall.
Yeah. Do you really think that's going to happen? Come on. And he's right, though. They told us that the family is going to die. Why do we keep hoping when they've made it very clear? Right? Mm-hmm. Why do they? So now it's time to kill the family. Mm-hmm. Or not. Whoopsie doodle. They leave because it's late. I might have the order of... No, I think
that's... Yeah, they do just... Because it's past midnight and we're getting bored and hungry, so let's just go.
Yeah, they say like, they're spent because it's whatever. So they just leave. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and now Naomi Watts, whose hands are taped behind her back, and they used packing tape, which is impossible to get out of.
Yeah.
Because it's not perforated. Duct tape is perforated.
I was noticing that too, because at first she was trying to like break it off with like a corner of the TV stand. And I was like, man, if that was duct tape, she would have gotten through it like no problem, but it was packing tape.
Yeah, and they put it on very thick too. Mm-hmm. So it just was, there was no hope of getting that off. So now she goes into the kitchen. We don't see, the camera just stays, which it does a lot. Mm-hmm. Just stays, which honestly made me as an audience member feel kind of trapped with them. Absolutely. She comes back and now the tape's off. So obviously she found a kitchen knife or something, something to puncture the tape. And she tries to help her husband, whose leg is destroyed.
Yeah, and he's been stabbed.
And they start trying to figure out what are they going to do. Mm-hmm. She picks up her phone and it turns on, but it won't make a call. because it's probably water damaged.
Yep.
So now they're trying to figure out what to do. He tells her, you should friggin' run to the hills. Like the Iron Maiden song. Run to the hills, get help. I'll stay here, and because I can't go with you, I'll slow you down. Because one thing I like too is they were both positive they were coming back.
Yeah.
Even though they made it sound like they weren't. They were positive they were both coming back, or were waiting for them outside.
Yeah. And they both knew that, which
Yeah.
is why time was of the essence, because they knew if they were going to get out, it was going to be now.
Yeah. So now we have these long lingering shots that just so viscerally remind us time is passing. Very much. And I gotta say, I'm going to crap on this filmmaker quite a bit here in a minute, but not really, but kind of. But I've never been able to say about anybody else that they made time viscerally pass.
Yes. Well, I think one of my favorite parts was when George Sr. was there and he's trying to use the hairdryer to dry off the phone.
Because when Naomi Watts goes for a run, to run for it, he sits there with a hairdryer trying to get the phone to work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he sits there and he makes a pass. And you can see what's so interesting about his performance is you can see him disassociate in and out on screen, where at first he's just mechanically doing this, and then he sees a baguette.
Yeah.
And he kind of steadies the phone and he steadies the hairdryer and he grabs the baguette and his brain turns back on for a moment and he takes a bite. And as he's chewing, you can see disgust in himself wash over. And he takes the bite out of his mouth and throws it on the ground and then starts trying to dry off the phone again slowly. And you're like, how did that 45 seconds on screen make me so miserable?
Yes. No, and misery is a very good description of this movie. This movie is great if you're a masochist. I like movies that challenge me and make me feel very strongly, even if it's very negatively.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the reasons I started the show.
Yeah.
Was to share those kinds of films with the Weekly Spooky audience who I felt like would be interested in what's a movie that'll challenge you, because they like to be challenged every week with a scary story. But my God, him biting that piece of baguette and then grabbing it with his hand and throwing it on the ground makes you really kind of realize where they're at.
Yeah.
That it's kind of over.
Mm-hmm.
It's sad.
Yeah.
And hellish. So now Naomi Watts is trying to escape. She uses some pliers to cut through a fence to make that hole bigger. No one's home anywhere nearby, which makes sense because they've either been killed by the bad guys or they're not there yet. They're just not staying at their houses right now. The only hope they had was that friends might stop by, but that isn't until the next afternoon. So now Naomi Watts gets basically captured and brought back to the house.
Well, and I thought that was really interesting because she's on the side of the road and she sees a vehicle coming, and she's in such flight mode because there is no fight anymore. There is only flight.
Right.
She's in such flight mode that she waits for the vehicle to pass to make sure that she doesn't see these two sociopaths in it.
Yeah.
But that means she can't flag them down because it's the middle of the night. So then she makes the fatal error of the next vehicle that she sees. She steps in front of it, and we know because it just stops. We know what happens. But then her husband's sitting there in the house. We go back to him, and he's trying to dry off this phone, and
he manages to call 911.
He manages to call 911.
The microphone on the phone isn't working.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So he's just sitting there kind of collecting his thoughts. You hear the front door open, and then a golf ball rolls across the floor.
Filmmaking. So now a golf ball rolls through, and that tells Tim Roth's character everything he needs to know about what is about to happen. And what is about to happen, we will talk about after these quick words from our sponsors. All right, we're back with more cutting deep into horror, and things are getting very intense and funny games at this juncture in our conversation as the monsters themselves have returned. They've captured Naomi Watts, and now it looks like we're about to play the last two games that really aren't very funny. So,
well, and I double checked my notes because after they've captured Naomi Watts, Anne, and brought her back is when they play the game of saying the prayer.
Oh, okay, it was okay. Gotcha.
I wanted to double check because I was like, wait, how does it go? So, luckily we already talked about that.
Yes,
So.
and then they kill her husband. So,
and all we see after they kill her husband is it's morning.
Yeah.
She and Peter and Paul are in rain suits and they're going out to the dock. And
they're in sailing suits, which are like raincoats.
But they
basically.
look like raincoats.
No, they're basically raincoats. They look like the guy on the like Morton Salt or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a little girl, by the way.
Well, you know what? I'm tired of you. Crap.
So what's really interesting about this is, they've got her bound, they've got her gagged. And as they're setting sail, they're talking about quantum theory. And even more, they're having a specific conversation, it seems like, about a specific work. And they're talking about communicating between the real and the unreal.
The material and anti-material.
Yeah, the material and the anti-material.
Yeah.
And
I'm not smart. I just remembered that phrase.
It does kind of stick out in your head. So they're having this whole conversation about the material and the anti-material. And, but is the hero real or is his family real? Oh, no. Well, his family's real, but he's in the immaterial plane. So now he's unreal. And they're having this conversation, and then kind of unceremoniously, Paul turns to Peter and says, hey, what time is it? It's about 8:00. And with Anne seated between them, Paul looks at her.
Well, before you get there, because you're building it up perfectly, before that, she'd found the steak knife she gave to her son earlier that day on the bottom of the boat, and she starts trying to cut herself free. But they immediately notice and go like, wow, you deserve like an Olympic medal for whatever.
He calls it like the Olympic spirit.
The Olympic spirit. That's what you really have, the Olympic spirit. And then he just takes the knife and throws it in the water. And you're just like, oh. And then he gives, I believe that's the last time he kind of goes to the audience like, really?
Yeah.
Like you thought that was going to work?
Yeah.
But yeah, then you're totally right though. Then they get in between her and it's as simple as, oh, it's already 8:00. Push her in to drown.
And I think that the kiss of death, because he kisses her on the cheek.
Yes.
Before and it was so unceremoniously.
Yeah, it was not with love or hate. It was just
the thing he had to do.
Yeah,
it gave her a kiss and then just pushes her over the side of the boat. And Peter says like, oh, she had another hour. And the change in demeanor is so utterly psychotic because because Paul says, well, she was spent anyway. There was nothing more that she could do.
Yeah.
And then the goofiest grin washes over his face and he says, besides, I'm getting hungry.
I'm getting really hungry. And he's like, yeah, me too.
Yeah. And so they go to another dock. They go to another person's house, knock on the door.
That they had seen briefly.
Before.
Very similar to how they got with the family at the beginning of this movie.
Exactly. And at first she's very hesitant. It's because it's 8:00 in the morning.
Well,
she had just woken up.
So because it's a dock, they're walking right into their backyard. Because it's summertime and they're on the lake, the screen door is the only thing closed. So they're literally shouting through the screen door.
Yeah.
Hello, anybody? That would startle me.
Yeah. So once he identifies himself, he says, Paul, we met yesterday. And she finally, yeah, come
on in. Yeah.
Come on in. And he looks at the camera.
He looks right at us, the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And it freezes.
and it plays the only music that's consistent in the film. And I kind of wanted to touch on that because a couple weeks ago when I'd watched this by myself again, I'd posted about it on Facebook, and I'd kind of mentioned, like, in my post, I was like, by the way, I'm keeping the volume at 1 until after the beginning credits roll, because it starts out with like classics, and like the family is even talking like they're playing a game, listening to opera. Like, oh, you've got to guess like which song this is, which composer it is, and everything. Again, slice of life, very wholesome stuff. And as soon as the credits start rolling, it immediately changes, and it looks like you may have information pulled up.
No,
but
no, I do. Yeah, it plays Bonehead by Naked City from their album Torture Garden.
Which all of those words in sequence should give you an idea of how intense and loud and it's screaming, and I mean, great music if you're into some kind of metal, I assume. But to go from, something like Vivaldi and then immediately smash to that is very jarring. So the only other time we hear music in the film, though, is that song, because there's in the middle when he's chasing Georgie Jr.
Yeah, and he plays it
on the stereo. He says, I want to play some music for us while we play this game. And then when it freezes at the end, we hear it again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's beautiful, because I think some directors will sometimes hide behind music. And this movie in particular, the storytelling was so deeply reliant on everything going on screen and all of the minute details happening on the characters' faces, that's the only time the music was needed, was to just kind of snap you out of it almost.
And that is the film, though.
Yeah.
I mean, like, everything about it.
Yeah.
So it was released in 2008 theatrically in the United States and Europe.
Okay.
It was a massive bomb. It made $8 million in the box office against a $15 million budget. And many say that this is the film that killed Tartan Films, because Tartan Films put a lot of money into it and didn't make any of it back.
Uh-oh.
I found the exact quote that Michael Haneke said. He said he wanted to make a message about violence in the media by making an incredibly violent but otherwise pointless movie. That was the exact words. And that's where he and I disagree.
Go on.
If you don't mind, I'm going to soapbox this. I had spoken to some horror movie loving friends years ago after I first watched it, who said that they disliked the film because it suggested that horror films and horror and violent entertainment is immoral.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think that's the movie that they made, because to me, all the movie really showed, and maybe this was intentional, is that people who believe that they love horror and believe that they love violent movies and that they are jaded are not. Because the movie says, hey, here's a movie about this family dying. And you're like, yeah, brother, like, I wear a black t-shirt, I listen to death metal, like, yeah, brother, that's what I like, right? Which is the way a lot of people like to depict horror fans. It's also the way a lot of horror fans like to depict themselves. But, it's like, yeah, kill him, yeah. And then what happens? It's like, why did you want the little boy to live? I told you he was going to die. Why did you think that she was going to shoot him with the shotgun? I told you they're all going to die. Why did you think she was going to cut herself loose? I felt like the movie really just shined a flashlight on how hopeful the audience for these kinds of movies are.
Yeah.
By giving you an actual nihilist movie.
Yes.
Because most really upsetting horror movies get points docked when they're hopeless.
Exactly.
They really do. Like, I don't think you've seen Last House on the Left. I need to show you that. We should talk about that on here sometime. It's a very disturbing film, but it has a satisfying ending.
Mm-hmm.
In like 2006 or something, this guy made a movie called Chaos, I believe it was. And it's basically the exact same movie. I mean, he ripped it off. It's not a remake, but he like ripped it off. But his ending was downbeat. And Roger Ebert was like, the fact that it had a downbeat ending gave us absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Like, we ended up going, why did I watch this at all? I got nothing. Like, if you're going to make a great villain, you need to make a great hero for the audience to cheer for, even if the villain wins. And they didn't do that because they're lazy. That's my opinion. But so with funny games, I felt like if the point was to say that violent entertainment is pointless, it didn't accomplish that because the movie's good.
Yeah.
And the movie's not that violent. Not in depiction. The movie is a violent story. The story is dripping with violence.
Yes.
But you don't
see it on screen.
Not much, yeah. We see some blood. We see I mean, some heinous revelation when we see that the child is dead.
Yes.
We find out he's dead just by seeing his brain splattered on the wall in the television. While they're arguing about
arguing in the background. And that was that was another one of those shots where it's like, it had to have been 30 to 45 seconds of literally watching the blood and the brain matter drip on the TV screen while they're arguing in the background.
And they're arguing about not killing the child, but that he didn't follow the rules of the game, that he was supposed to kill whoever was at the end of it.
Yes.
On Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo, but he shot the kid because he got up and ran. That's what they're arguing about. They're arguing about the fact that he did not get picked by Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo, or at least they didn't get a chance to pick him in Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo. Not
so
the fact that they
broke the rules of the game, and so they're not concerned. They're concerned about the rules of the game, but not anything else going on.
Exactly. And that's just for their own amusement anyway. So I think that the film, if anything, is a massive statement about the fact that people who love this kind of media are actually very sensitive. That's what I think. That's what I got from it. Even when I first saw it when I was 22 or 23, that's the sense I got.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, I would have to agree, but I kind of come at it from a slightly different angle. Cause like you said, with my introduction, you kind of opened the doors of horror for me.
Hey, don't put that on me, man.
Because I really did try to think about it, like, as we've been talking and whenever we'd take a break. And before you introduced me to a lot of horror, I had seen all of the Ginger Snap series.
Oh, so good.
There was some smattering of other weird miscellaneous, like Cursed.
Oh gosh, Cursed, the werewolf movie?
Yeah.
Wes Craven was very unhappy with how he was treated on that movie. He made Red Eye to prove he could still do anything good.
I didn't know that.
Because Cursed was before Red Eye.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So most of what I got into horror was, mostly werewolf movies.
I'm starting to notice a pattern, yeah.
I'll be honest. So I've spoken to other people about this, but like, I'm kind of the outsider coming into horror.
Yeah.
Over like the past 5-6 years. So I'm still like infant baby horror nerd. Like I'm a 6-year-old horror nerd. So that's one of the reasons why this film was challenging, because it's supposed to be, but also why I think that it has been so pivotal for me understanding not only horror as a franchise, but also my relationship with horror, is because when you had shown it to me, we'd watched a lot of the pretty scary stuff. And we'd even watched some of the stuff that was a little more challenging, because I think we'd already watched Cannibal Holocaust.
Yes.
And that's part of the reason you brought this up, is because I thought Cannibal Holocaust was really good, but I was relatively nonplussed by the violence.
Sure.
So you were like, well, if that's how you feel, we really need to check out Funny Games.
Funny Games, yeah.
So it reasserted to me that horror is ultimately about hope.
I agree.
Because that's one of the reasons I wanted to mention that, like, Georgie did everything right when he was running from Paul. and we still didn't get a reward. So horror sets up an expectation as a genre that there will be a hero, or there will be a saving moment, or there will be something that gets comeuppance against the monster.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the movie, when it gives us none of that, you do have to sit there with the question of, if I knew this movie was being honest with me, why did I lie to myself throughout the entire movie that it was going to be anything different?
Because you're a little hopeful baby dummy. Because you wear those heavy metal shirts so that they don't show the tears on your shirt when Bambi died. That's why. And I'm one of them. I am one of them. I think that it's wonderful to celebrate the fact that most horror movie loving people I know, most horror loving people I know, like the people who listen to Weekly Spooky every week, we're really sensitive people. We're very emotional. We're very empathetic people. That's why we like horror, because we feel very much.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like Funny Games gets across, even if their director doesn't realize it. He totally sells that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
It did to me. So it's kind of like Cabin in the Woods. If you have you seen that?
I think we watched that one time when we were camping.
Yeah. Well, we'll rewatch it sometime, because that's another one that people thought was hating on horror fans, and I got the complete opposite view personally. So no, I think that Funny Games is, it's just a movie about the fact that even the most jaded movie fan actually would like hope and resolution and for good to conquer evil.
Yeah.
So,
I have to agree.
Thank you. I don't know if anybody else thinks that way about Funny Games, but I've finally put that opinion out there into the world. That's right. Take that, Mr. Michael Haneke. Sorry about you. You're German though, so please don't yell at me or I'll pee a little. So
yeah, I would just hide under a rock.
Yeah. So anything else you want to say about Funny Games before we wrap up our show?
No, just pretty much more of the same, that if someone is looking for something that is a challenging film, because that's one of the things that I like when I sit there and talk about movies on Facebook, is I at least want to kind of have a general idea of who the movie is for.
Right.
And this movie is for people who want to be challenged. And that's why, now that I've watched it a few times in the past couple weeks, I probably won't watch it again until I want to be challenged. But I think that's important, and I think that's one of the things that makes it a valuable film, is it kind of shines a light on, like you were saying, it shines a light on what horror fans really are like, because we're a bunch of hopeful idealists.
Oh my gosh. I know so many horror movie fans who are vegetarians and vegans who work at animal shelters.
Yeah, and these are my 5 cats, and I just rescued another one last week.
Yeah, I spent freaking $10,000 on my dog's cancer. And I'm a big, and I watch Cannibal Holocaust and go, what a great film.
Yeah.
We're not the way that anyone wants us to be depicted. We're not.
No.
We're totally different. And if that director doesn't understand that, well, subconsciously he does.
He does.
Because he made a movie for us that is nothing but empathy and emotion and caring.
Yep.
And in fact, by establishing the characters with no major qualities, you establish that we're willing to empathize with people we barely know at all.
Yeah.
That we literally only know that they live and breathe and have family.
Yeah,
which is the base of everybody.
Yeah, which is like the bare bones for caring.
The bare minimum of the human experience. So,
yeah.
Well, thank you, Rach, for sitting down with me and talking about Funny Games. I think we got some good talk and good stock. And I hope everybody's enjoyed this episode. We'll be back soon, in maybe a couple weeks with another Cutting Deep into Horror. And if you want to contact us, you can send us an email at weeklyspooky@gmail.com. Let us know a movie you think we should look at. We would totally watch it.
Yeah,
right?
I would. I mean, I think we've got a list, and we're always looking for suggestions. So.
Absolutely. And if people want to check out your fiber art, tell them where they can check it out.
Well, you can find me on Facebook at Rodolphe Fiber Fantasy, and you can also find me on Instagram at @Rodolphe, and that's spelled RED like dog, OLF like frog, I.
And that's how you spell that. So But now we're going to get out of here. Had a great time with this episode, but now it's time to wrap it up. So thank you so much for listening to Cutting Deep into Horror. I've been your host, Enrique Couto, with my co-host, Rachel Rodolfi. And before we get out of here, I do want to say a very special thanks to our Patreon podcast boosters, folks who pay just a little bit more every month to hear their names on the show. And they are Johnny Nix, Bobbletopia.com, Megan Hua, Julia Kirsch, Brett McCullough, Steve King, Karen Wiemet, Jack Kerr, and Craig Cohen. Thank you all so much for supporting us. And if you want to join those illustrious names for as little as $1 a month on Patreon, you get bonus episodes of podcasts, behind-the-scenes look at everything we do, and so much more. Just go to weeklyspooky.com and click on Patreon. But now, my friends, we have to escape away to probably end up watching something else spooky, but also, things more scary, like veterinary bills. So, until next time, thank you again, and we'll catch you real soon. Bye.